Hi, everybody. I see people are pouring in, so just give it like 30 seconds, 1 minute, just for people to come in.
I feel like we're on display, like we're
I
the zoo.
know.
People are coming in and they're like, "Hi." Wait, wait, this is the safari. We're in the safari, but we're on the other side.
I have leopard print on
Yeah.
to get ready for.
I was looking, an ad popped up for a Puma tracksuit with leopard print just now. I was
Oh
like,
wow,
oh,
yeah.
buy
That's
that.
funny. That is
Okay,
funny.
cool. Should we start? Or
Yes.
All right.
yeah. Okay, cool. Because a lot of people also listen to the recording. They sent me messages. So everyone, thank you so much for joining. And I'm really excited. These two faces with me are super familiar and I feel very warm towards them. And many of you that I connect with on social media and some in person. So thank you. So I just wanted to give a quick introduction. I think most of you are very familiar with Jen and Joey, but I do want to just introduce them for those that maybe don't. And it won't be like a traditional intro, but I'll start with Joey. So Joey is the CEO of Roadmap Writers, and also I think the CEO of Saving Dogs. And I can honestly say, just in short, nobody works harder in the industry to get writers represented. I was thinking, I think it was about a year or so ago that you and I did a webinar, and you were about to celebrate your 200th writer that you got. And now, as of yesterday, 366 writers. That is just incredible. Yeah, so I don't even know what to say. But thank you. And I know that everyone who works with you is very grateful for that.
Oh.
So Jen, you've got an amazing history with your consultancy that came from your time at Aaron Spelling, and obviously I'm a little bit biased, but you know, one of the top TV consultants in the industry, probably the best in my humble opinion. And what really speaks to that is your 110 pilots that your clients that you've worked with have sold. I mean, I was working it out, and about 3 years ago, it was about 70, and I was like, that's like 10 a year, almost one a month. So that's also testament to the work that you do. And also 5 of those have gone to series, because obviously that's then like
10.
10. What am I
Yeah.
talking about? 10,
Wow.
Yeah.
10.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Double
that's
that.
incredible. Yeah. So I'm just going to leave the intros there, and I thought that we could just start. Let's just get straight into it. Like, one of the big things, and I know why people are here, is Joey. You are like the guru of how writers should get repped, and maybe you can just start telling us a little bit about that, and give us, like, say, the 5 top criteria of things that a writer should have or that you look for in order to do that.
Yeah. Hi everybody. Nice to see you all. Now listen, if you live in LA and you don't have a dog yet, or at least 2, you have to email me immediately. No, but so I mean, so yeah, like Eve was saying, I've been doing this for a long time. And one thing that I like to do is try to help writers when they're ready get in front of reps. And like Eve said, we just had our 366th writer signed yesterday, Tate Haniak, who's amazing. And for me, it's like a few things. I pretty much all day, every day is like read scripts, see like which scripts I think I could send to execs or reps, and obviously getting to know the writer as well. So a few things that I really look for, first and foremost, is voice in a script. Like, to me, sometimes I'm reading a script and like it seems like it's like checking all the check boxes, like it's formatted correctly, structurally it's sound, but why am I not like transported here. And a lot of it comes down to voice. Like, I feel like writers who know like their point of view, what they're trying to say, creating atmospheric settings. Like, I was reading one yesterday. I did like I talked with the writer, and it was so atmospheric. Like, I felt like I was transported back in the 70s, like in the disco age, and it was just so exciting. So that's something I always look for, is voice. On consistency with the portfolio, we need at least 2 or 3 scripts in the same, more or less, in the same genre, or at least kind of like in the same spectrum. So like if I'm going to send a horror script to somebody and they're like, great, what else do they have? I liked it. What else do they have? And then I send, Inside Out or whatever, they're going to be like, this is so different. So they want to see consistency. So that's what I look for as well. Also too, like, just one thing I always tell writers, you're a human first and a writer second. So I always want writers to like know that they're not just writers. They're not just like, I submitted to this contest. Like, what else do you bring to the table? As the industry constricts, wait, by the way, how many did you say? 5? Or how many? I feel like I'm talking 5. Okay, we'll say 5. But like, as the industry constricts, like the emails I'm getting from execs, it's like, we're looking for people with interesting bios, with something interesting to say. So really, when you're crafting your writer's bios, like, what makes your story different than everybody else's? It's not just you write scripts because you saw Jurassic Park and you love cinema, but specifically, like, what's your visceral reason to for why you're writing in the first place. Giving good general meetings. It's not, when you're meeting execs, it's not an interview, it's a conversation. It's not the executive's job just to ask you question after question after question. It's your job to engage. It's a two-way street. So those are a few things. I've lost count. I've lost kind of on what I said, but those are a few things that I look for when like reaching out to reps for a writer.
No, that's amazing. I remember another TV writer that I interviewed once, who reads a lot of bios to try and get people staffed. She said a very interesting thing. It was actually Wendy West, Jen. She said when she reads the essays, it's the different things that people say about their lives or themselves. And she used the example of, someone said that in their spare time, they did pig farming, and she just thought that was so interesting, and that caught her attention. I guess it's just making yourself different and interesting.
Yeah, it really is. It's just, and Jen can speak more of it, of course, is just like, what makes you different? Like, what makes you not necessarily like special, but like, what's the magic sauce that you bring to the table? That's what I always look for.
Yeah.
What's your superpower?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the idea. I mean, I think, you brought up Wendy West, Eve. Like, when you look at people who are meeting with 20 people in a day or 10 people in a day, what sets you apart is your story, is your emotional truth. I know in Writers on the Verge that where I was the writing instructor for 13 years, every time we would take it from the top 30 of 3,000 down to the top 8, what made a difference was what you tapped on with the essays, because you would look at the essays and you would look for voice, like Joey was talking about, and you could ask 10 different people what voice is and you'll get different answers. But when you look at voice, you're looking for emotional truth in the true life stories and how that leads to what a writer writes about. So I know everything that I looked for when helping wheedle down the top choices, whether it was for Writers on the Verge or whether it was for when I was staffing 15 shows and giving my executive producers the top 10 choices. You're looking for writers who understand how to live and absorb life and bring it to the page in their emotional truth. And there is a difference between emotional truth and biographical truth. So really understanding that, and we'll go into that more, Eve, when we talk about the emotional truth with the question you have.
Well, you may as well talk about it now, because I'm holding your book here, Storyline.
Awesome.
And And you have many books, I know, but this is the one I keep next to my bed. And sometimes when I need inspiration, I just pick it up and I open it, and there's an exercise or something. And this actually I picked up about 2 hours ago, and I was like, how did I not see this? And I just wanted to read exactly what you're talking about. You say here, the gift of fictionalizing the truth is that you can reveal your truth, yet still keep your secret. Now that is so, it resonates so much with me, and I'm sure with many other writers, because that's the fear, is we don't want to expose ourselves.
Can I just say, and I'm sorry to, this might be like over the top, but if you, and I literally get nothing out of saying this. If you haven't worked with Jen, you are like missing the F out. Her brain works in ways that I'm like, what? How is that even like, what? I didn't even think about that. So yeah, sorry, I just had to throw that in there.
Thank you, Joey. I feel the same about you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so Jen,
Eve,
tell us about that, because that's the hardest thing on earth to do as a writer.
Yes, like the exercise that you pointed out in Storyline, I love, as far as understanding that our highs and lows happen to us for a reason. They happen to us so that they can have an impact with how we pass our story forward. But so many writers are afraid of their autobiographical truth, as I mentioned. So when you add fiction to it, you get to bury it, but we get to hear you. You get to be vulnerable. And when we feel your vulnerability, then we know that you can identify with what you're writing. When you identify with what you're writing, then you define what you have to say to the world with the stories that you are choosing. And that is everything in going toward everything we're talking about with unique voice in the business constricting. So there is a much greater need now for writers to be very clear about what you have to say to the world with your writing.
You know,
and the other thing I just want to add really quickly, that Jen said this before, and I think it's very important to repeat for the writers, is that by the time an exec, no matter what time of the day it is reading your script, getting your bio, meeting you, there's probably been 20 other people that they met before you. So it's really important that you immediately, with whatever your truth is, whatever your point of view is, whatever your voice is, like it has to pop right away, because execs don't have time to be like, okay, I think there's something here, but it doesn't really like us pop. I'm thinking about the last person I just read, what an interesting backstory they have. They really connect. I mean, then all of a sudden they're not thinking about you. They're thinking about the writer before you and who might be after you. So really carving in like, what is your truth? And like, that is something that execs will always connect to.
Yeah. And I mean, just on something I've experienced, Jen, in your tele seminars, like it's been incredible to see some of those writers like in the previous years, and how they have grown so much over these years, and now I'm seeing them smashing it, you know. But the one thing that I was thinking about what you're saying is seeing in literally like 6 weeks how they transform their scripts. And I remember there was one particular writer, I won't mention her name, but everybody was like, speak about this truth. And she was just horrified. She was like, I cannot do that. And everyone just put so much pressure on her. And I saw recently she won a big prize in one of the screenwriting spaces for that script. And it was the opening scene. So yeah, just to talk to that as well. So just something, I don't know if there is anything that you guys have noticed in the industry lately, because look, so much has happened. There's been the writer's strike and there's just so much going on. And maybe there isn't anything, but have you guys noticed any specific new kind of, not trends, but certain things that people have that are looking for now that maybe are different from the past, or anything like that? I was just wondering.
I mean, for me, it's like something that I mean, look, it's harder than ever. It's harder than ever. Some reps are saying they're looking now for people with credits only. It's going to be harder for a little while. It'll find its balance like everything, but like now it's just kind of in a weird state. But it's just something to be aware of, is that your bio and what makes you different is just exponentially more important than ever. But I think in terms of what people are like specifically looking for, I think genre is always key. We got the horror, we got the thriller, sci-fi, comedy. I think indie drama features is going to be kind of hard to kind of pinpoint for a little while. But just like genre, something with like an easy hook that people could be like, okay, in one sentence, I get what this is.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. And I really appreciate that you're honest about it, because, you know, as writers, we do have to be realistic so that we can just work harder. Yeah, so thanks for that. And Jen, anything in your space?
Yeah, I definitely agree about the horror, which is interesting. Like, when horror in particular is a fascinating thing, because I've never been a big horror fan, and suddenly I'm looking at things left and right going horror wise, and I've gotten into it and I'm loving it. And the reason I'm loving it, like when I was a current programming executive, I covered shows like All Souls, The Kindred, Medium, and the gift of doing a sci-fi show or a fantastical show like Charmed is that you get the liberty to go so much further. And I think horror is kind of an intriguing genre now, that people are making loud statements within the horror genre where we feel what they're saying to the world. And I think there is a value in that. And I also think I can say from my own viewing that the political psychological thriller international is something that I'm noticing, like going to the top of so many charts with what people are watching. So I think because the world is in the place that it is, we are fascinated with understanding points of view that are different than ours, like we never have been before. I watch international shows almost more sometimes than US shows, because I want to see how other people see and experience the world.
Did you see Bad Sisters?
Yes, I love
So
Bad Sisters.
Good.
Yep.
So speaking of stress, well, I don't know if we're speaking of stressful, but like that show gave me so much anxiety. It was insane. The other thing too is like, I think IP is always going to be king, queen, everything. Like, and it doesn't mean like a big comic book or something, but like a true story. Like, go back and figure out, like, there's actually, I got a few scripts sent to me recently all about this. I'm not going to say what it is, but a same character or same real person, I should say, from San Francisco. And I think that's what execs are always kind of looking for, this instant familiarity, something that they're familiar with, a political figure, and maybe shown through a different lens we haven't seen before. So if you could add that to your portfolio, I think that would really elevate your portfolio overall.
That's
Because
so
then
cool.
you have an immediate audience. I'm sorry, Gabe. Yeah, like when you look at The Good Wife, and because there was an immediate audience with what was going on in the world with Elliot Spitzer and John Edwards and everything that was going on at that time, we were all going, oh my God, what would it be to be a woman who has to move forward after there's this major public sex scandal? What would that look like? And The Good Wife like came out and we got to see, and it's like an immediate built-in audience, and there's such a value to this. So I love that. Yeah.
So I'm going to go a little bit off topic because something happened today. So I posted on the Screenwriters Safari page about how I watched Naiad. And anyway, if you guys haven't seen it,
I haven't seen that yet.
What's it called? Naya?
Naiad. It's Diane Naiad.
Oh.
That's her surname, with
Yeah,
Jodie Foster. And it's an incredible true story about swimming across the ocean with sharks and jellyfish and everything. So one of the people who came to the safari before, you guys know who I'm talking about, but I won't mention his name, But today he did a swim in South Africa in really treacherous, freezing cold waters with sharks and jellyfish. And I was like, oh my God, have you seen this? And he was like, oh, I don't know why I didn't write my story first. And I was like, you know what? It's actually great for you now, because now there is IP on this. And it's just such an inspirational story. And I don't know if you think that's true, or is it like hardcore competition, or do you feel that maybe it does kind of open the door a little bit because that has been tried and tested?
What's tried or tested?
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I just wanted clarity. What are you talking about? Like just
like the nature of the story. If the story is similar, like motivational or whatever, does it kind of close the opportunity for a similar story? But or if you've got your own, or do you think that it does create like a bit of IP that people, producers would want to potentially look at it because it's been proven to be successful?
Got it. Jen, you go. Yeah.
Thank you. IP is, I mean, the story you're talking about in particular is his emotional truth and his experience. So if he were to write a book about it and then try to turn that into something, then yes, that has value. And just because somebody else has done it, and if it is successful, and I actually remember the executive producer posting about that on my Facebook page. So I forget who it was, but I know somebody associated with that project. And I think, you know, when you have success, like I know in Writers on the Verge, so many writers would panic as soon as they saw the pilot that they were writing in the program, that something sold in that same vein, and writers would freak out and think, oh my God, suddenly my story has no value. And that's not true, because if something works at a high level, then the competition wants their version of that story. So that means there is something that's resonating with the public. So I believe in the circumstance that the situation you're talking about, that it only opened the door for him to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. And Joey, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that.
I'm just thinking of the person we're talking about, and I just love him so much. He's so fantastic. He's such a good person. Obsessed with him. Yeah. I mean, I think that, like, I don't know. I think it all depends. I think everybody like will have their opinions. I think as long as it's like a different point of view, I think that obviously, since this movie came out, I don't think there's gonna be another Naiad movie coming out anytime soon. I think it's about like just showing on a different lens into things. But yeah, I think it's all kind of relative, depending.
Yeah, cool. So Jen, you know, you've staffed a lot of shows and stuff, and I wanted to know, like, in your process, what are the things that that you would look for in that process of staffing, of choosing writers to be on a show?
So when I was staffing shows, the things that I would look for, obviously the first thing, very, very strong writing, because that's how you open doors. Your script is your calling card, which is why I focus on the development of story so much, because I know how pivotal that is to get to an outcome. So with strong writing, I look for theme, I look for message, I look for a concept that has a worldview that is unique and that makes me, I mean, so many ideas have been done left, right, backward, and forward. And so you have to recognize that what makes your story different is often the worldview of your central character. So having a worldview that makes us want to come back is so important. Then the second thing I look for is presence in a meeting. I look for writers who are in the meeting, who are there to connect, who are there you know, it's so easy to get distracted by fear, and it's so easy to forget why you are there, that you don't bring up certain things. And when you are meeting, we are trying to figure out how to market you in the best way possible that is going to get you staff. So you have to go into a meeting recognizing we want the meeting to work as much as you do. So that comes down to you showing who you are in the meeting so that we have something to market. And then going into that as well is, what are your personal stories? I work with writers on a thing called Logline for Your Life. And the reason I have writers work on Logline for Your Life is so that when they go into a meeting, they have a framework of story that they can go into in the meeting in an authentic way that gives the executive or the executive producer a glimpse of who you are.
Yeah, which is aligned with what you were saying, Joey. Like 100%. It just got to be present, and I
it's
love
hard though. I mean, like to Jen's point, is like the fear. It's like you're going in and this is like, I could quit my day job. This is everything that I wanted. And it's just like, I could imagine like going into a staffing meeting. I'm not a writer, but going into one or just any meeting and just like, it's so hard. Like, I'm actually, can I just go off topic for a second? I'm kind of curious. Like, Jen, what advice would you give to a writer who's just like the fear just consumes them every time? And they're like, why am I so nervous to pitch? Like, is there like any like tips that you would give just to be like, relax?
I think the biggest way to get over fear is to be prepared. So the best way a writer can move through their fear is think about, okay, what is the opening to my meeting? How do I want to open? What are a few sentences that can break the ice and help me connect with the executive? Joey, what you talked about earlier, which I loved, is recognizing all the weight is not on the person you are meeting with. You have as much control as the person you're meeting with for the meeting to be a great meeting. And a great meeting involves engaging back and forth. So if you have a question for who you're meeting with, something to the effect like, I love what you do, how did you get into it? People love that because that creates a connection, and that helps you to move past your fear. Because when you feel like you know someone and you feel like someone is on your side, then you move through that fear. And also it's just doing it over and over and over again and recognizing, all right, I'm just here because somebody loved what I did and I get to talk about it. What a privilege this is. And I remember in meditation, a shift that I loved, which was taking the mindset from the idea of I got to do this to I get to do this. And what a privilege it is to get to do this.
Amazing. Amazing. So yeah, so one of the things, Joey, that you have been embarking on is podcasts. And I was thinking how it's just such a natural progression of the world. We all have a voice and we want to be heard, and maybe our scripts aren't going to always be read, and the blogs that we write aren't going to be read. So podcasts have become very popular, and I feel that it ties very strongly in with being able to voice what one has to say. And I don't know much about this space at all in terms of doing them. And I wanted to hear from you, like, if people want to do podcasting, how do they potentially go about it, and why would people choose it? Yeah, just share with us a little bit about that.
This is interesting is lately there's been a number of our writers like that have been staffed on podcast shows or suddenly like show running podcast rooms, or being hired a lot in the podcast space. And I thought like after COVID, like there would be, because there was such a boom in the podcast space, I thought it was kind of like dissipate a little bit, but I do feel like it's kind of here to stay for I guess a little longer, I suppose. But there's also different kinds. There's like true crime, there's different kind of narrative ones, but the ones that like, it is interesting in terms of like a writer starting their own podcast. I'm a big believer in, if and just goes across the board, is like, don't try to start too like ambitious with things, whether it's like with your the kind of concepts you create or the podcast stuff. So maybe instead of creating your own to start, like you should try to get into some rooms. You should try to like talk to writers that are in podcast rooms, try to like shadow or something. But I do think that it is interesting to see the podcast space continuing to grow. There's I don't have a lot to say names of anybody, so I'll leave that out. But there's also, yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I'm still kind of dipping a toe in the podcast space, to be honest. I'm still learning, but overall, I'd say it's definitely a space that people should consider. Also, too, short stories. We just had a webinar with David Boxerbaum from Verve, and they have a whole department now about to find short stories, sell short stories. And these are just short stories that are that are just on Reddit or on a blog. It doesn't have to be like, have a lot of followers or anything. So I think just like thinking outside the box. It's not just writing a feature and a pilot. Like what else can you have? Can you write short stories, maybe one-act plays? Can you write a podcast? Because again, as the industry constricts, it's important to be able to like dip a toe into other things.
Oh, I think that's amazing, because I don't know much about it either, besides the podcasts that I listen to, but you never really think about doing them yourself. And I'm thinking, when you're talking about like short stories, you know, back in the 50s and 40s, there used to be on the wireless, they used to have lots of short stories and stuff that people used to follow because that was the only medium they had. And you're making me think now of the TV show, All the Light I Cannot See, with the broadcasting. I don't know if you've seen it, Joey, but
yes,
literally about a woman who broadcasts from France in the war, and she tells stories, you know, for random people to listen to. So it just feels like it's doing a bit of a full circle. So yeah, thanks so much for that. And if people, are there things on Roadmap that people can tap into?
Yeah, well, we have like a podcast competition now. There is this podcast company that is currently hiring, and they're looking for romance drama writers. So if anybody writes in that space and you want to send me your bio or logline, I'm happy to send it over to them. Because they're currently hiring right now. So you could do that. I just want to go back a little bit about fear. I'm obsessed with fear because every decision I make is out of fear. So like, I just want to like talk about that for a little bit. It's like, I don't know. I find it so interesting. It just, especially like as I teach classes and like teach writers, like I always want to just remind them, like, you're the one actually doing it. Like I could give all the advice in the world, but you're the one actually going into the room. And like, one thing I've noticed too, is like, especially when you're like pitching your story before you go into the pitch, because it's so daunting, is like really, and Jen, you were saying this too, is like, start with why you wrote it in the first place. Like ease into a little anecdote about what inspired you to write the story. What's the connection between you and the protagonist? Because usually that'll help ground you, because first off, it's reminding you why you wrote it in the first place. It'll get into the most important things, tap into the most important things, themes, characterizations, objective, and then go into it. So I would say if anybody's ever going into a meeting and feeling like they're going to vomit all over the place, or they're just getting really nervous, really tap into why you're writing in the first place. What's your brand? What's your point of view? It really does sophisticate the meeting, in my opinion, because it does give the executive like an understanding, like, oh, this person's coming in with something to say, which really does make the person be like, okay, I'm going to lean in a little bit more. I just find it so fascinating. It just fear the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, but it's true. I mean, I wanted to vomit before this webinar, so I totally get it.
But yeah,
a friend of mine sent me a message 10 minutes before. How are you? I said, well, right now I just want to puke because I'm about to do a seminar, but can we chat tomorrow? So
And look,
get it.
we're all surviving. There's no vomit yet. We're all surviving. But yeah, I mean, just know as writers, as you start taking more meetings, as you get more in front of more people, like Jen was saying, it will become a little bit more, I don't know if like comfortable, or at least like you'll be more used to the fear and the anxiety and how to deal with it. And I don't know, I kind of think also too, it's like having that fear is kind of a little exciting, especially in meetings, because it raises the energy. If you go in and do like whatever, it's like they can see that, like, well, if you don't want to be here, then I don't want to be here either. But it's like that energy is kind of fun.
Yeah.
And it all comes down to the dream. If you think about it, like when you're taking a meeting, the person you're meeting with also had to start a career, also had to go into meetings with a dream and learn how to communicate that dream and learn how to express themselves. So it's like the playing field is even. All it means is you're meeting with people who are at a different place in the process of making the dream happen. We are all the same in that we all start with a dream and we go after it. So there is no reason to be intimidated. You have to believe in what you have to offer, that it is worthy of you being a working writer, and working on that emotional belief is all part of the work that you have to do.
Yeah. And I mean, you provide a great opportunity on your teleseminars, Jen, for all of us to pitch to some of your special guests. And they're always so kind because they've also all been there. And also on Safari, all of them pitching to you guys. I don't think it's any less scary, but I think Angela described it the best. She said it's as thrilling as it is terrifying.
If you could pitch in a safari setting, you could pitch anywhere. I'm sorry, there was somebody pitching, all of a sudden like 30 baboons showed up like behind her, and it was just like, and she wasn't distracted, she kept going. It's like, yeah, that's, speaking of just powering through.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great experience. So guys, I see there's a couple of questions. If you don't mind, I'm just can I go to a couple of questions, and then we should have enough time to wrap up. So Christina, it's a little long, but I'm going to read it. She says, "Hi, I'm a writer director, and now I'm doing a teaser for the animated sci-fi series for kids. I showed the pilot script and pitched the project to the execs and investors, but they all wanted to see it visually. Not only the concept arts that I've had, but a teaser, the animation visual style. So I've started working on that. My question, in a month, the teaser would be done, and what is the best way to approach the execs? Should I just email those who worked with animation, like looking for contacts on IMDb? I'm just starting, so I don't have that many contacts yet. Thank you." What would you guys say?
I'm just rereading it, sorry. So I showed the presentation and pitched it to execs and investors, but they all want to see it. Well, I guess like, and hi Christina, good to see you, or see your name. Well, I guess if they're asking for it, like if you already have that open conversation, I guess you should have like be able just to email them. But I guess if it's like new people that, I mean, I don't know, I'm kind of like maybe old school when it comes to this. It's like, I think it's just about the script. Like, as long as the script, like just focus on the script, let the producer, I don't think it's like your responsibility as the writer to come up with all that stuff. Like, I do think it's the execs and the producer who picks it up to kind of work that through with you. So in my opinion, I wouldn't even worry too much about doing that and going down that rabbit hole. It's just like, write the script and like, then try to set it up someplace, but know like visually what it looks like. But I don't know if you necessarily need to go down that rabbit hole, because I think overall it's not your responsibility. What do you think, Jen?
I think like if they asked her to do it and she did it, then it is, yes, you get back in contact with them and you show them what you did. I think I agree with you completely, Joey, as far as, is it on the responsibility of the writer to come up with a sizzle reel so that they can visually see it? It is it is not. And the script should do that. But I also think that so many writers get fearful, as we've been talking about. Like if someone says, oh my God, I love this concept, I'd love to see the script. And then 3 months go by or 6 months go by and they don't send it. And they're like, oh my God. No, if somebody requested it, whether it ideally you want a good time period from the time they requested it to giving it to them. But if they requested it, then you take the action to give them what they requested and have a strategy as far as everyone else. Like if somebody asked for this and you went through the effort and did this teaser and you're going to send it to that person, then you may also want to do the strategy and be an entrepreneur and figure out what are the other places that would find value in what you're exploring with your concept.
Yeah, I guess as you said, you're a writer director. So at that point, like if they're looking for it on a director point of view and they see how you could actually direct something, then obviously, yes, that's more than the script. Yeah. They'll want to see footage. One thing too, just for every writer to be aware of is as many times as you meet execs, will come up more and more. It's like the understanding of what is kind of a way, like to interpret things that they say to be like, okay, do they actually want this? Or is just like a soft pass? Do they feel uncomfortable to pass? And they're just saying, just write it as a book or write it as a graphic novel and come back to me. There's so many times where a writer will get that note and take it literal and just go down this multi-month journey to like write a book or a graphic novel because they think that's what the person wants. And then they'll go back to the exec, like, here, I wrote a book. And the exec's like, oh, well, I don't want this book. I was just saying that as like kind of as a soft pass, like kind of get out of here kind of thing. I'm not saying this is the case, but it's really just like, as long as you want to do it, then you should do it. Because if you're doing this because one executive said it, and like, maybe we'll be interested if you do this, that, and the other thing, is like, I see too many writers kind of being like, okay, good, this person's interested, I'm going to do all this stuff. But if they were interested, they would literally be like, okay, we're going to pick up the script. We're going to work with you on this. So it's just kind of like knowing like how interested they are before going down that rabbit hole. I know that wasn't really the question you asked, Christina, but I always like to put that into because I do see sometimes writers kind of take an advice an exec gives thinking that's what they really want, when it's just like, just in general, you should do this, if that makes sense.
I think that's excellent because one can just grab onto any little bit of hope, but you just maybe need to interrogate it a little bit more profusely. So yeah, thanks for that, guys. So there's another question here from Robin. She says, do emerging writers need to choose a path between staff writing and creating original content, or is it advisable to pursue both avenues?
I think, there are agents who divide it into the staffing writers and the pilot writers. So I think it depends on, I like to believe that everyone should approach writing a TV pilot with the intention to sell it. So I think until you figure out, now there are also, I work with many writers who are idea people. They don't want to staff. They're not in the place to staff, but they have a bazillion ideas. So those are people who definitively know that, all right, I'm an idea person and that's what I want to do. I want to sell shows. So I think it all depends on your understanding of your strength. But I know when I was coming up as a current programming executive, pilots weren't written by baby writers at the beginning of my career. And now I would say newer writers are getting their feet wet before many top level writers who haven't written pilots again and again and again. So I think it's understanding your strength, and also understanding what you want as a writer. Do you want to staff? Or do you want to sell shows? But I don't think every agent that you have to make that decision. Whereas in the past, you had to be on staff until you were supervising level or executive producer level. Then the agent would take you out to sell your script, but it's different now.
Yeah, I think and I'm sorry, I keep prefacing so much what I'm saying with this doom and gloom, but as the industry constricts, is that you do kind of have to be open to everything. If you just want to be staffed and you've never been staffed before, I mean, I think it's going to be exponentially harder for a rep to want to take you on because they know how difficult it is to get staffed, especially now. Like for every one staffing job, there's hundreds of submissions. So you need to like figure out like, okay, maybe I should do some features too, to like start building a name up that way, or set up a show, or get some rewrite assignments, get studio level assignments. And just start building your name like that. I would definitely say be open to everything. And when you get repped, like these are questions you should ask your rep before you decide to sign with them. Like, what do they think you should do? You should come in with what your goals are, but they could kind of maybe kind of bring things to reality. Like, no, you won't get staffed because you've never been staffed before. So let's try to build up your feature world and like get some credits that way, because the feature space is like a little like not easier, but like a little more attainable right now, instead of like staffing. So I think definitely asking those questions, but you have to be open to everything, especially now.
That's a great takeaway. Be open to everything. So Yambezi, hello. Yambezi
wait, I have to say this. I had a dream about Niambezi yesterday. I don't remember what it was, but I think we were at a mall and like we were like eating at the food court. I don't know, but there was a dream last night. This is weird. Okay, sorry, keep going.
No, it's just awesome to see you here. Anyway, she's got a question. She says, how do I resurrect old contacts to whom I've pitched to before I was actually ready? Does the industry respond well to that? Can I just contact someone with my new scripts and hope for the best? Or is there a right way to say, hey, I'm all grown up now and I have some new work? I love this question.
I love your new script is your calling card. That's the reason to start the conversation again. So if you have somebody who you felt like you had a good meeting with, but you weren't fully ready, but now you do feel like you have an idea that's getting heat, then that's a reason to start the relationship again and start a conversation. So yes, you should reach out to someone to tell them you have something new and you're excited about. I mean, people get excited when people hear other people are excited. That's why, like, if you place in a competition at semifinal or above, it suddenly carries weight because Hollywood loves to know if someone else loves you, then I love you. And that's just the way it goes. So you want to be able to market yourself. But I encourage you to start the conversation again.
Yeah. And like, it's really the in-between emails too. It's like, if you're going to email the same exact, hey, here's another script I wrote, here's another script I wrote, here's another script I wrote, they're going to be like, oh my God, like this person just kind of shoved things down my throat. But it's really like the relationship building in between where you don't ask them for a single thing. It's like, hey, I just saw a movie you guys did, it was amazing. Or I just saw this that your client did, it was awesome. To Jen's point before about like, starting a meeting with like, I'm so like, I love your work. It's like, it makes them be like, oh, wow, this isn't just going to be another person that's going to shove the things down my throat like everybody else, but this is somebody that I could build a relationship with. And just kind of like picking up where like, I remember when we met a while ago, you mentioned that you love this movie. I just saw it. It's amazing. So they know that not every time they get an email from you, it's gonna be like, oh, they're asking for one more thing. So yeah, but you should definitely keep on your contacts regardless. I wouldn't say like I'm a better writer now because they're going to be like, I think that's just every writer should be improving. But I do think the in-between emails are just as important. Yeah.
That's great advice.
Wait, Jen, can I have to say something, Jen? I guess not to embarrass this person, but Bill, we know Bill, mutual friend, Bill.
Yes, of course.
Can you tell him that he has to get a dog? He has to. I see him on.
I know. I saw your comment.
I try every day, and he says no, but he has reasons. But he has to. This has to stop. Okay, sorry, Eve, keep going.
No, and Bill had a dog, so he loves dogs. So I have
three. Anyway, but
yeah.
Joey, that's why we love you, because you are just so who you are. And there's just two more questions here that we'll take, and then we'll wrap up.
Oh wait, okay, Eva. I was going to say, because you had so many questions about the Screenwriter Safari that
yes, I will get to those.
Okay.
one of these questions I think is a pretty straightforward one, but important. Vicky asks, can you sell a pilot and be on staff?
Well, it depends when you get staffed. So when I was, when I was staffing and in charge of that, like, it all depends on your contract, because when you're getting staffed, you are committing to something. So it depends on your level whether they will let you develop. It's in your contract. So there are many lower level writers that they will put something in the contract that you can't develop for a certain amount of time. So it all depends on what the contract is, but there are many mid to upper level writers who specifically want their agent to put in their contract that they can develop at when the show isn't going. So it all depends on what the contract is.
No, that's 100% true. I'm just looking, Bill just posted a question. Anyway, I'm just going to get to Jason's first, and then he asks actually, okay, we have to address Bill's question because he's just hilarious. He says, if you have a meeting with someone and it turns into someone wanting you to adopt a dog, do you do it or tell Joey no?
You do it. Next question, please. You do it. Next question, please.
Thanks, Bill. Nice to see you. Okay, Jason, so this is a good question. What serves older emerging writers better in this new credit-only market? A feature or a pilot spec?
I honestly would say whatever is your boldest sample. I think to an extent, not, this is not gospel, but like, it's almost like nobody knows what they're talking about in terms of like what they're looking for until it's in front of them a little bit, but like, I do think that, like we were talking about before, is like genre is always king, if you, or queen, like whatever. Like, I do think that like, if you could write like a nice, like a kind of interesting, unique genre feature, that's always in vogue. But it really is like, what's the most your voice? In terms of the credit only space, I was just talking about what I'm getting emails about. That's really more like for the staffing space, and not everybody, but it's just because it's so hard. But like in terms of like setting up a show, it's like, it really like, or a feature, it's just whatever your boldest voice is, whatever the most unique concept is what I would say. Jen, what would you?
I totally agree. I think your strongest script is what makes a difference. Now, I work with writers all over the world. It depends on too, like if you're in a location that isn't like a main location where you can get work, feature writing is a great thing to do. Like you talked about too, Joey, I think writing short stories and people who are writing shorts and going into the film festival circuit, I think there is an excellent way there for you to get known. But I think it comes down to what is your strongest script, because your script is going to speak more loudly than anything else in getting doors to open.
Cool. Okay, guys, we're just running out of time, but maybe we can post these the rest of the questions on the page or something, and Jen and Joey might be able to answer.
That's a good idea. Oh, I love that idea. That's a good idea.
Yeah, cool. So I just wanted to touch a little bit on retreats. Okay. Guys, it's just amazing having you on them. I just don't even know what to say. You make it spectacular, and I'm like the luckiest person on earth in terms of retreats having you. The end. Okay, but I just want to ask you, please, can you guys talk about, because I have a lot of Zoom calls with writers who are keen to come, and one of the questions is often, well, how does it exactly work? So I always say to them that each of the mentors has their own process, and that is what makes you guys you. So maybe you can just tell us what your approach is when you work with writers on a retreat, and what your thoughts are. Who's going first?
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So first of all, Eve is like the most spectacular hostess in the entire world. So I can't say enough about what Eve does for this retreat to make this retreat something that will live on in your heart forever. I think now more than ever, it is important to build relationships. And this retreat is an opportunity for you to build relationships, not only with your mentor, but all the mentors who are there and all the other writers who are there. So there is a tremendous value in this. As far as my system as a mentor of working with writers, I read scripts 2 to 3 times before I give notes. This has always been my process. I feel like this is what helps me see the story at the highest level. Then I divide the days that we have to work with the writers one-on-one on different focuses on your script. So emotion, character, plot, overall notes, so that you're not feeling inundated with everything at once, but there are certain days that we focus on certain parts of your script. And then having the other writers in the mentee group give notes on each other's scripts, because what this experience does, which is what Joey and I do with our work and everything that we do with our events, is what it does is it's reproducing the idea of the writer's room and what you are going to be doing on a day in, day out basis. But the value of doing it on a retreat with animals right outside brings your creativity to a whole new level.
Thanks, Jen. And let's not forget you read everyone's scripts 3 times, which is quite a thing. Yeah. I struggle to read them once, but that's why I have my job and you have yours. Joey, tell us about your process.
Yeah, well, let's do some buzzwords. Giraffes, lions, Jen Grisanti, Meglavov, Javi. Like, it is, I am terrified of flying more than life itself. And there's nothing that will get me on a 20+ hour flight than more than this. Like, this was so incredible. Eva's the most organized human being in the world. It's definitely something that, I know I struggle with this. It's like being stuck in a routine where every day has to be exactly the same. And if there's one thing that if there's one curveball, I start going out of whack. And I don't think that's really healthy. I think you have to step outside of your comfort zone and experience new things, especially as a creative, to kind of keep growing as a creative. And this is something that you certainly will experience things that you probably have never experienced before, especially if you've never been to this kind of safari. But in between all the fun stuff is you literally are learning from Jen, Meg, Javi, amazing people there's lectures, there's
and
Q&A,
you
and pick your brain. Well, but there's and what's kind of my approach differently is that I'm not if you want a deep dive story notes, that's not really my I'm not that's not my I guess my brain is me is how do we fine tune the voice and how can we make what would be the next step? So you have the script, how can we fine tune it, make sure the voice is always popping, and what kind of people should we be reaching out to in terms of reps or execs, or should we do execs first and reps later, or should we do reps first and try to get a team first? So I'm kind of thinking of the next step kind of thing of okay, so you work with the brilliant minds of Jen, Meg, or Javi. It's but now what's the next kind of step for your career? And there's also delicious foods, and the tour guides are amazing, and it's just the lodge is gorgeous. It's amazing. It's really not even real.
Thank you, Joey. But I just want to say, okay, I just need to tell everyone on this call, and I tell writers this. So Joey is the person that literally changes people's lives. And on the safari the last time, there was one of his writers who got ripped on the last day, and Joey worked really hard to make that happen. And I just want to tell you that I actually speak to her quite regularly, and
she's on here now.
Is she here?
Yeah.
Wait. Eileen, hello. I know you signed up, but I didn't know you're on. Did you write a question that I haven't scrolled down to? But anyway, I just love, oh, there you are. Hello. And I just love chatting to you, Theoline, because the last time we spoke, you just were telling me about all the networking that's come from it and stuff like that. And that made my heart so happy. So yeah, thanks for that. And I want to ask you guys one more thing. So just, well, two more things. One is, what is your desired outcome for writers when you go on retreats? Because you know, writers have expectations and you will also have desired outcomes for them, but one also has to be realistic about those things. So just maybe an honest input into that.
Okay. Well, for me, I think the idea is getting the script to the next level is a quantifiable goal. Then I feel like being there, being present, making relationships, being connected when you go on the game drives, and absorbing all the energy that's going to come through you that is going to help bring your script to the next level. So my whole focus is on the idea of how do we get the script to the best place possible while absorbing this gorgeous facility, the amazing food, the incredible people, and bring it to the page.
And I just want to say thank you for you treat this very, very much like a job, and you work very, very hard for the right. You all do. But I've met with you before the retreats, and you are in your hotel room studying scripts and just working so hard to just make it the best experience for those writers. So thank you for that. And Joey, what is
outcome? I guess just like reality, like just being like, okay, this is like, for me, it's like, I just want to work with writers who actually want something out, like that have an end goal, and to like get like to take this as a career. And like, so like reality, like what can actually, in my opinion, I definitely don't know everything, but like, what could we do after this? What is the logical next step? So to me, it's like creating like a sense of like, okay, what do I think would be a next step for you? So we could like work on what that would look like. And yeah, and like to Jen's point too, is like, there's no other retreat that has this kind of background where like you're learning and you're creating, but also like Jen was saying, absorbing, like waking up at 4:30 in the morning 5 days in a row and not even realizing that was ever something you could ever do. What do you say?
Don't scare them all
No,
off.
but it's true. If you said you have to wake up, you don't have to do the morning safaris, but like waking up, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning being like, it's time. And like, don't even wake me before 8 a.m. in Los Angeles. So like, it's just you're so wired the whole time and like so excited about different things. It's great. It's just absorbing, but also like for me, like creating a sense of like, what is the next step?
No, and I appreciate that, because yeah, you kind of got to keep it real. And I always tell people, like, you know, I wouldn't, you're not the best person for the beginner writer, but for the person that is serious about it and ready for that next step, you're it. So that's the honest truth. Jen is very good at nurturing right from the beginning, from someone who's never written a script. I don't know. I hope you don't mind me saying that, Joey.
Oh, not at all. Yeah, it's true. Because I do want to make sure. Oh, it's starting to rain now. I hate when it rains. I immediately start getting cranky. Oh no, rain. But yeah, but yeah, guys, I know it's like, it's a commitment. Like it is like a commitment to go to this. It's like, it's just fantastic. It's like it's like unreal.
Oh,
It's like
thanks.
literally unreal.
Thank you so much. I've got one more question for both of you. And because you guys always are so modest, I decided that I'm not going to ask you to say why somebody should choose you as a mentor. Jen, maybe you can speak about why to choose Joey as a mentor. What
That's even more embarrassing. Oh my God.
There's nothing embarrassing about that. No, I think if you have a definitive plan to go. First of all, you're going to have a blast with Joey. Joey is amazing. He is so spirited on this event. He loves animals, and you absorb even part of his joy with that, which I feel like lends to the whole bonding experience of why you're there. And then I think Joey is all about the end game as far as what is the strategy that we're going to do with your career. So I love what Joey brings to the table. And that all depends on where you're at with your writing. If you feel like you are in a place with your writing where you're getting very high level on competitions, or you've already staffed, but you want to continue this strategy with your career, then Joey is your perfect person, regardless of where you are. Because even if you are newer in the process, he's going to guide you on what are the right things to do with your career. And this is everything.
By the way, I don't think I've told you guys this, but the safari we did last time, I saw a warthog in the distance that I thought had a little bit of a limp. So that night, I was up all night, like, who can I get so we could sneak into the safari, rehabilitate the warthog?
That is so you. That is so
so a little sense of danger as well. But
I
with
think I remember you telling me about a warthog that was anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, how do we bring this warthog back to Los Angeles? But yeah, well, Jen, thank you so much. I mean, obvious, like, Jen is like the queen of the screenwriting world. So smart. She's even just like in conversation, the things that she says, like even just outside of screenwriting, I'm like, oh my God, that was so profound. There is like a level of like depth that will really help bring your characters to life, because there is such like an emotional like depth to her that is like unparalleled, and it will help your script just have that heart. And if it already has the heartbeat, how do you make it even a stronger heartbeat? And are you bringing Chris, your husband?
Yes, I am.
Now, listen, everybody, Chris is amazing, but you got to back off. So Chris is my best friend, and it's my journey to make him my best friend. So you got to back off.
Oh, Joey, you're too funny.
But no, it's
He loves
amazing.
you too, Joey.
It's fantastic.
Well, that's the cool thing. You can all bring partners if you like. So, guys, I think we should end it there because we're a little bit over. And I am just beyond grateful, excited, and it's going to be awesome. And if any, there are a few more questions. Jen and Joey, do you mind if I post them in the group that you'll just maybe type a couple of answers because to the people I didn't get to?
Yeah, of course.
Cool. And yeah, I see someone wanted Jen's address. I've popped it there in the chat. And if anyone, Roadmap has got loads of cool stuff and also a lot of free stuff and amazing programs to elevate your careers. So go check them out. And if you want to book a spot, the website for Screenwriters Safari is screenwritersSafari.com. And yeah, I've got spots for Joey and Jen if you're keen, but they probably won't be available for long. So hit me up.
Now listen, you all have to bring your hard hats because we might be going deep into the safari at night and saving that warthog. If that warthog is still there, it's on, people. So get ready. So, but yeah, hopefully see you guys there, and we'll talk soon. And Jen and Eve, great to see you as always.
Great to see you too, Joey. Wonderful to see you, Eve. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
I would love to see everybody there.
Yeah, thanks, Joey. Lots of love to everybody, and thanks for joining. Okay, bye.
Bye.